Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everyone today? Happy to see you all. Great to be here. I woke up a little late this morning, so I'm somewhat fuzzy. Feeling fuzzy, probably looking fuzzy. But we'll get it all together here momentarily. In the meantime, I'm trying to figure out what in the world happened to the stream this morning. It was all very strange because when I clicked on the YouTube um, stream tab, it brought up this opening music, and then so I said, "Oh, okay, so that's part of the stream." So I just click on that, and I'll I won't have to click off the other music. Well, my brain obviously wasn't turned on. Uh, with my eyes might have been open, but there was limited consciousness there. So once I figured that out, then it got less confusing, more disturbing, and more mixed up and more messed up, but less disturbing. So anyway, here we are. What's it? Wednesday, Wednesday morning. Ah, and we're in the middle of the week, hump day, glory. So let me see if I can now accomplish what I set out to accomplish, which was to get back on the. Here we go. Okay, we're gonna get there now. There, I'm here, and I can see your comments. Let's see who all is here. I think I've said hello to. I'll said hello to a bunch of you. What is going on? We're still not really totally straight, but we're getting there. Okay, here we go. Oh, Joshua Miller. Hey, Joshua. Good morning. A bunch of people came in earlier. I'll be here, says Doobs. Hello, Doobs. Doobs showed us some of his tanks last week. He's pretty sharp, pretty sharp. And we got a new guy over on Discord who's doing shrimp and very, very excited about him. You know what I ought to try to do? I think I can do this. Let me see if I can bring up some of his shrimp pictures of shrimp. I should be able to do it. Where was he? I don't even know where he was. I think. Let's see. Let's just bring this up and look at it. We gotta find it. Was he in photos? Yes. Okay. Check this out. Check this out. Look at that. Is that coal or what? And I don't know what half of these are called. He's got a bunch of them. There's another one. Look at that. Look at that. Stunning stuff. Just stunning. Driftwood River, he's called, and we'll have to get him. We'll have to get him over here. We're talking about setting up a shrimp channel on Discord that will allow anybody who wants to know anything about shrimp to go in there and work with a master. Um, uh, this guy's been doing. He's been doing shrimp Driftwood River for about 15 years, which is about as long as it's been around. Um, so he's obviously, he has new Carradine as well as Carradine. The Carradine are much more difficult to do, require much more specific water parameters, but those are the really beautiful ones. Those are the ones that have all of the incredible color. All right, I'm going to take this off my head so I can hear myself think. Maybe I'll just leave that. Well, the light was blinking. So I think I wasn't being heard. All right, we're gonna try it again. Let's gee whiz. Well, I guess you were hearing me. My huh. Okay, can you hear me now? Am I still there? Am I audio? With the shrimp. So you heard about the shrimp, so obviously that's there. Papa Shrimp is here. Papa Shrimp, hello. Nice to see you. Just talking about, I don't know, do you know Driftwood River, Papa Shrimp? Um, he just came over to our Discord last few days, and we've been talking with him. And one of the things that I've been wanting to do is get some more qualified people into the Discord on specific areas. We've got a few things absolutely covered. The deep substrate is covered. Uh, Food webs are covered. But we need somebody with real expertise in saltwater. We don't have that. And now we've got somebody coming in on shrimp. We do have some discus people and a few other things like that. So we're going to try to set this up so that we have channels dedicated to people who are long-term keepers, fish keepers, in those aspects of the hobby. I think that'll give us a better sense of how we go about dealing with these various aspects of the hobby, because frankly it's excuse me, it's really all about expertise, and the expertise of somebody who's been around for 20 years is very different from that of a person who's been doing something for a year or two. The year or two person has learned how to achieve stability, but the person who's doing it for 20 years has confronted situations that that left them on the edge of chaos, and they've gotten through it and dealt with it, and become stronger for it. Excuse me, I want to put my light on here. Got a couple of lights here that'll make my face shine and make my glasses glow. All right. Anyway, so that's part of what's happening there. So come on over to Discord. It's a great place where we have lots of fun, meet lots of cool people, and be able to get the kind of help that really is going to make a difference to you. Let's see. ADHD has a morning meeting. Well, we're not going to wait for you, though. We'll be here. Just come on back in and say hi when you get here. Charlotte. What else? Ilyuta. Naresh. Chris Robertson. Scott Stankovich. Rohan. Crowntail Aquatics. I want to talk with you and find out what you're doing with crown tails, because frankly, crown tails have been my favorite for years and years and years. We'll bump you up with a wrench here, crown tail. I remember, golly, when was it? About 2000, well, no, about about 2000. About the year 2000. About 20 years ago. I had a store on Aquabid, and I was selling various things, kind of casting about looking for a specialty. I was in the wholesaler one day, and they had just gotten in a truckload, literally a panel truck filled to the brim with bettas. There were, I don't know how many, 500,000 bettas. It was astounding. So I hung around. It took them 2 days to unload them all. And even at that, they didn't take them out of the bags. They were all just kind of dumped. Well, back then, there was no grading. They were kind of all mixed. Everything was mixed in together. There was no sense in which there was one kind of betta that was better than another. There really had not been any substantial efforts up until a few years before that to really separate everything out by quality and type and so forth. So it was all glommed together. And I would go through these things and I would pull out the crown tails that were just starting to come in. And I absolutely adored them. Still do. I love crown tails. I think they're a magnificent strain, a magnificent morph. And there's so much variety with them. That's remarkable. So anyway, I proceeded to collect these and sell them on Aquabid. And I was the only one there doing it at that time. Nobody else had them. And I would spend time making a really nice picture. My beard is fuzzy. Yeah, I know it is. Spending a really nice picture. And then I'd give it a catchy or a fancy name. American Beauty was one of my favorites. But I found one time that now is one of the more desirable strains and among the fish. It was a koi crown tail that had 3 different colors, and I can't even remember: red, blue, white. Red, blue, white, I guess. And they were in a panda pattern. So I called it, what did I call it? American Beauty Koi Panda Crown Tail. Something like that. Put it up on Aquabid. Really liked it. Popped it up there for $25. One more little detail to go back. When I found this thing, I was so stunned by it. I walked into the office of the director, the manager of the wholesaler. It was a woman. I showed it to her, and we were both stunned at this fish. It was so remarkable. Took it home, put it up on Aquabid for $25. Figured, wow, if I can get $25 for this, that would be incredible. Well, 2 ladies, one in San Diego and the other one in Seattle, started bidding on this fish. And it was a 2-day bid, I think. Bid was to end in 2 days. When it got up to $100 on the first day, I was stunned. By the end of the second day, the last bid in was $249. Well, I had plans to keep this fish for a while and breed it. I put it in the mail that very day, and got it off to her. And she got it and bred it and developed a West Coast strain of these remarkable fish. Beautiful fish. You can find them today. The koi is still fairly rare. Koi crown tail, and that particular panda pattern is not common as well. But it was soon after that that things began to change. And now if a fish like that is produced in the system and comes out into the hobby, the wholesaler will start it at $25-$30 or more as a wholesale price. I paid $1.50 at the time. So so I look at the list now and I salivate over some of these fish that I used to be able to get very inexpensively that are now double what I charged in my shop at retail. Let's see, where else we get to the bottom here. T-Bone's here. Hello, T-Bone. Maple Street, nice to see you. Patricia, I got what I thought were ghost shrimp and they tore up my betta's fins. Put them with my tetras and they disappeared. Oh dear, ghost shrimp. Well, they might have been ghost shrimp. There are various shrimp that come in as ghost shrimp. The ghost shrimp is essentially a feeder shrimp. So there's very little attempt to collect them by species. They're used as feeders. They're sold as feeders. They're caught in very large quantities, and very often there'll be stuff mixed in. In fact, the shrimp, the shrimper men might run into a population of a completely different kind of shrimp without even paying any attention to it. I mean, in the wild, shrimp is shrimp. And if you're looking to catch 100,000 of them, you're not paying a whole lot of attention to what the species are. So that can happen. And there are shrimp that are notoriously aggressive toward fish. They've got big claws, some of them. They're just a variety of species. Typically, I'm not aware of the what passes for the typical ghost shrimp being at all aggressive, but you likely got a different species, not even a subspecies, a different species that played havoc with your fish. So you got to be somewhat careful about that, and just really pay close attention to what you've got. If you can't tell them apart, you're kind of stuck. Put them in with the tetras and they disappeared. Well, one of the things that happens fairly commonly to any of the exoskeleton, uh, um, the exoskeleton guys we have in our tanks, like shrimp, lobsters, crayfish, that sort of stuff, crabs of all kinds, is that they slough, they shed, they grow an inner skin that is larger than their outer skin. They break the back of their carapace and pull out of it and then begin pumping water into this new soft skin. Well, in the process of doing that, they release an odor in the water that tells everybody around, aha, food. And they can be attacked and completely decimated, eaten up in a matter of minutes because they're very soft. They can't get away. They can't protect themselves. Excuse me. They typically try to do this in an environment that's safer, hide in the weeds, get in a cave, something that will protect them. But they don't always succeed. So that likely is what happened. They shed and the tetras just said they had a banquet. Excuse me, I've got the frog is back. All right. They would have done the same. I've never seen one. I'd love to see him. Yeah, remarkable. That was crowntail. Remarkable fish. Randy Koch, have you ever had red-eared sunfish? Yes. And I adore them. I was talking with Frank yesterday. We were talking about sunfish. There's such an amazing variety of sunfish here in the U.S. It's probably the most beautiful of all of the small tank level, aquarium level fish. Now they get somewhat big. Sunfish will get, they can get 8 to 10 inches. More commonly, they're smaller. And there are a number of species that are less than 2 inches, inch and a half to 2 inches. And they're amazing. They're stunningly beautiful fish. There are a few species here in Florida. They're all in northern Florida. I want to make a trip up there and see if we can get some. We're planning a trip to the Everglades probably this weekend. So if we do that, I'll make sure we got some footage. We may even try to do a live stream while we're there, see if we can have some fun and share that with you. But we also want to get up to the Florida Panhandle. These are long drives. These are like 4 to 6 hour drives to get where we need to go. So it's half a day to get there, which means we'll have to be staying overnight and then coming back the following day. So anyway, Jesse, hello, good morning, Jesse. Best bait ever, soft shell crawdads. I'll tell you what, when I was a kid growing up, we used not soft crab, but what's called peeler crab, which is the crab just before it sheds. You can break it up, and that hard shell holds the inner shell, the animal intact and in place. You put that on your hook, and that's how we caught all of our big fish. We fished peeler crabs throughout my entire childhood. But yeah, I would imagine a soft shell crawdad. Now, they're a little harder to get. The soft crab, the blue crab, when it sheds, it hides in the grass. So you push a net through the grass and they kind of roll over into the net. The crawdad's a little different. They dig a hole in the ground, may well even come out of the ground, dig a hole, dig it down below the water level. So they're in the water, but they're down in this hole, completely protected. The snake or something comes into the hole, they're not going to go in the water. So they're down. They go down in this little hole, dig out enough of a cave to be able to move around. They shed there and they wait there until they harden up, and then they come back out. Makes them much more difficult to catch. But if you know what you're looking for, you can do it. You just got to literally dig them out. Let's see. Maple Street saying I have very large for sunfish, but kind of bland in color. I like pumpkin seeds and large ears for larger ones. ADH is back. Randy, they probably need a school to show true colors. That's an interesting observation. Randy's saying in order for the sunfish to show their true colors, they need to be in a school. What that would do, of course, is it would allow the dominant male to come into season, to come into full bloom, to breeding, to what's called his breeding suit, because there will be one or two females in there with him, and maybe even another another male that he can dominate. So it's all about the relationships, you see. Christina, what did she find? Soft shell crawdads. She found them under a bridge in a local park. Were they just in the water, or were they down inside something? Best sand for deep sand. Play sand is dirty. It sure is. Can't seem to find pool filter sand. Is there an alternative? Something coarse to find? Yeah, no, you do not. You do not ever gravel whack. Once it's in there, you leave it absolutely alone. Concrete sand, concrete mortar sand is good. It's pretty clean. It's a fairly fine grade. which I prefer, frankly. I like the finer to the coarser. I think it frankly does better in the tank. But the coarser is fine so long as it's sand and not gravel. What you don't want is water flow. And with gravel, you get water flow. With sand, the water doesn't flow through, it gets drawn through by the microscopic life that's in the tank, the bacteria, which has cilia on it that moves the water, the microfauna that does the same thing. They actually will move the water through the sand. So obviously it goes very slowly, um, but it moves nonetheless. Under rocks on a limestone bed. Gotcha. Okay. So they've learned a new trick, and they're pretty protected there. Likely a fish is not going to be able to get under there and pull them out. Maple Street says pre-washed. You check it out. I have used the concrete sand, mortar sand, and it was pretty clean. But it depends on who's packaging and how they're processing it. Some plants will do only washed sand, others will do less so. Now, here's another shot. You can buy black sand. Tractor Supply sells it as blasting sand. If you can find blasting sand, that works really well. And they've got a couple of grades of that too. And that's very clean stuff. In addition to that, wild sand. If you can find wild sand, depending on where you live, there may be sand beds. A good boy, I'm having a lot of trouble today, aren't I? The body is telling me things. Wild sand, creeks, streams, even rivers are places you can find sand, and it's washed sand, or relatively so. You want to kind of skim the surface, but even with the darker sand or the sand that has detritus on it, take that anyway. Because if you put it in your tank, it provides a foundation. It brings life into the tank, and it brings the kind of organics in that you're really looking for. So the very best sand would be wild sand. Sand you collect from a stream, probably the very best, a creek, a river, a lake, any body of water that has sand in it. And when you set this up, if you're using that kind of sand, sand from a pond, for example, or from a creek or a river, dig up a 5-gallon bucket full of that sand and bring it back. It's pretty heavy, but this is going to be worth it. Layer it in an empty tank. Just put it in 3 inches deep. You don't need, if it's got a lot of detritus in it, a lot of material other than the sand, put the whole thing in there. Try, if you can, to hold back some cleaner sand from there that you can put on the very top, maybe an inch on the very top. Then carefully put water in it. Put a plate in there, a plastic bag, something so you're not stirring it up, so you're not boiling it up as you're putting the water in. Go ahead, let it fill, put a sponge filter in there, let it run for 24 hours. You can plant it immediately. Put fish in it the next day. Being sure to remove any chloramines you have in there. Chlorine will dissipate off in a day, so you don't even need to worry about it. Anyway, Mach 389, hello. Good to see you. ADHD, there's a nice yucky duck pond near me. People fish out of it. I'll get some substrate from there. That'll be yucky, all right. That'll be real dirty stuff. Go ahead and use it. It's going to be really good. But you're going to have to put a cap on it. So what you might want to do is separate it into two containers. Put the mucky stuff on the bottom, about an inch or a little better, an inch and a half deep, and then wash another inch and a half of sand. You're going to wind up at 3 to 4 inches here. You can fudge it a little bit on either side, but watch what you're going to put on the top. If it's very, very gunky sand, don't trust that all the way to the top because it's going to release too much nutrient into the water column. And that's the thing you mostly want to avoid, is getting this rich substrate into the water column. This is one of the problems with the way the professional substrates, the commercial substrates are used. They're used without capping. And so because they have nutrients in them, the nutrients wind up in the water column and you get algae blooms and all kinds of mess. If you simply cap those with 2 inches of sand, it won't be a problem at all. It'll be perfect. It'll work well. The plants will love it. It'll be just fine. So the commercial grade products are really good, but you got to cap them. If they have nutrients in them, you have to cap them. This is bothering me. What is going on here? It's my hair. That's what it is. I thought it was the beard. All right. So anyway, yeah, the yucky duck pond will be really good. It's going to be kind of muddy though. So you want to make sure you put a pretty clear cap on that. ADHD is taking notes. Good girl. Scott says river stream sand all the way. I've got to agree. The very best sand you can possibly use is wild sand. And the reason is it contains life. It contains microfauna, microflora. It contains fungus. It contains bacteria. And it provides nutrients. It's absolutely perfect. The only caveat is you want to cap it. You want to make sure that the topmost layer, 1 inch to 2 inches, and the topmost layer is pretty clean. That it does not contain a lot of the detritus that the lower level does. I don't know what I had in my lungs yesterday, but it's talking to me. And it's like a child interrupting me. All right. Maybe that got it. How should I select wood that is stuck in a dam? How should I select wood that is stuck in a dam? You mean like a beaver dam? What are you talking about here? Wood stuck in a dam. Chris Robertson already has bacteria. If you're trying to create an anaerobic environment, this is Chris Robertson. The sand from a riverbed, or rather a river bank, starting at 3/4 of an inch deep by the water line is really good. It's gray in color and it stinks. Well, there you go. Right. Stinky is not bad, so long as you're capping it. It's absolutely critical to cap it. Otherwise, you wind up with all that stink in the water, and it'll take a week or more for it to settle out and calm down. Let me get on this a bit. What do you do if your tank fouls? The first instinct is, oh, I got to empty out and clean it. And so you tear it down, throw it all away, and start over. That's one way to do it. It's the worst way to do it. It's the worst thing you can possibly do. And here's why. Because if you've got a tank that has crashed, then you've got a lot of organics in there. You got a lot of life in that tank. Now it may, in this process, have turned into anaerobic bacteria That's certainly possible. But the fix for that is really quite simple. If the smell of the water is such that it really offends you, then change maybe 50% of the water. But don't disturb the substrate. Leave it alone. For now, leave it alone. Because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to let this process itself. It will process itself. What I recommend is at least one sponge filter per 20 gallons or so. So if you got a 55-gallon tank that's crashed, put two larger sponge filters in it and let them go. Let them belt it out, max air. Most you can do. It will take 2 to 3 days for it to begin to really clear up. 2, 3, by 4. By day 4, it'll be pretty clear. By day 5, you'll be able to put fish back in it. It happens very quickly. Turning that water over with the air, with the filter, even an air stone, just a really strong air stone that's rolling the water, that gets everything in contact with the surface, where all the CO2 can be exchanged off for oxygen. And then you're getting that oxygen back down in the bottom, where it's reacting with various carbons and creating CO2 and releasing again. So being able to get that water moving will clear it out pretty quick. You'll be amazed how quickly it clears and how well it clears. Now, the benefit of doing that is you're saving all of that aerobic material. You're saving all of the the bacteria, the microfauna, that which has survived, and some will survive. The fungus, which absolutely will survive. You can then add a little leaf litter into that, and it's going to boom. It'll come back stronger than ever. So don't consider a tank that is crashed as a waste. It's not a waste. It's a step in a process, maybe a step backward for your purposes, but a step nevertheless. And you can reclaim it. You can bring it right back. Just give it a little time. It will resolve itself. It's not going to stay that way indefinitely. It's a very active process, and it works itself out very quickly. Again, by adding air to it, you decrease the time it takes for it to get itself worked out. I had 2 tanks crash about a month ago. Both of my saltwater tanks crashed. And it was disappointing because I had a few nice things I'd collected in there. I made the mistake of putting a bunch of shrimp in each one. I caught a lot of really nice shrimp. I put them in each of the tanks. Apparently, they'd been in my tray in the van for too long. They were weak and they died. And it fouled the water. So I went in there with my net, dipping them out, trying to get all the gunk out, all the dead stuff out. Then I put an extra sponge filter in each of the tanks. I let them go. By day 2, it was still cloudy. By day 3, it was clear. By day 4, it was perfect. It's quick. It happens very quickly and very easily. Don't feel like you need to cast out and throw away a tank that's crashed. You don't. All you need to do is give it a chance to work itself through, to get all those organics worked through, and it will be beautiful again. In fact, it'll be better. Oh, let's see. Try to get down. Oh, we're 9:40. Rocco, hey Rocco. Rocco is doing morning stream. I saw his ad just yesterday, I guess. So he's taking over the morning stream, and should be great fun. I'll plug in today with him. And you're not going to be. Today's Wednesday. Are you going to be there today, Rocco? because you were not doing that on Wednesdays. ADHD. Father Fish, I want to collect the leaves that fell in my yard. Is there a specific type of tree or leaf that is poison for fish? No. Once they've dried out, they're fine. However, I would select hardwood leaves, not softwood leaves. So pine needles will work, but I don't like them. Not that they're dangerous, they're just mostly messy. Messy in a way that that makes your tank not look so nice. It's kind of a personal preference, but hardwood leaves are always going to be better. Uh, the critical thing is you want the leaf after it's fallen off the tree, and preferably after it's laid on the ground for a season. So in the spring, you collect leaves that fell in the fall, spring and summer for that matter. In the fall, you really ought to wait. Now, if they fall into water like a creek or a pond or something like that, give them a few weeks and then you can collect those. And you'll have a wealth of bacteria, fungus, and other microfauna in with that. And that'll be wonderful. One other thing, if you are apprehensive about putting wild stuff in your tank, put it in a separate container for a while. A bucket, a tray, anything at all that'll allow it to breathe, allow air to circulate. Put it out in the sun. Let the sun beat down on it. Let more wild stuff come into it. And keep an eye on it such that you can take out small parts of it, some leaves and whatnot. Check them out carefully. Make sure there are no dragonfly larvae or planaria, whatever else you're worried about in there. Put them in a separate container and look, but it like in a jar, dump it in the tank. You're really not going to have a problem doing this. The worst thing that can happen is you get some planaria or some kind of small microfauna or large microfauna that preys on little tiny fish, but they're big enough to see you can pull them out. You're not going to get bacteria that are going to kill the fish or some kind of microfauna that's going to be a parasite. You're just not going to have that happen. I mean, the chance of it happening is 1 in 1,000. It can happen. It's uncommon. If it does, you deal with it. Not hard to deal with. Talk to me. I'll be over in Discord. If you have a problem, come on over and we'll talk about it. Rocco saying hi to Grass. Use fenbendazole debit, Rocco's saying. Avoid walnut and evergreen, Chris is saying. Avoid the green stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Never, 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 never put green leaves in a tank. Never do it from any tree, any kind, under any condition. What you will wind up with is the tank will foul because you're overloading it with organics, and it's going to make a terrible mess. It's like putting a green piece of wood in the tank. Same thing happens. As it leaches out all of its sap, it fouls the water. So you want to make sure whatever you put in there is well dead and dried up. None of its essential oils. Any of that in there. How to do white poop treatment? So Deb Moist Samantha. Metronidazole or something else more effective. And that's what Rocco said. He uses fenbendazole, an antiparasitic, which is pretty effective stuff. If you can't get it, contact me on either on Discord or on my website, Father Fish Aquarium. I do have it available. I haven't listed it, but I probably should. I've got about a pound of it, so I'm happy to share some. Do I find planaria problematic? No, I actually don't. They do get into it with some of the folks have had planaria. They've been able to sort it out. They've been able to pull them out and get rid of them. It hasn't been a persistent problem. Occasionally you find it, but it's fairly uncommon. Scott, who on Discord sells shell dweller cichlids? I'm not aware of other fish channels. There are some. You might get over on Discord and check on on fish channels and see if there's someone. I don't think we have anybody right now on our channel who's doing shell dwellers to a level where they're able to sell any. I don't have them going here that well. Who's this? Mississippi Hippie. Hello, hello. Mostly use oak leaves. Perfect. Moonboats just posted the Fatherfish Discord link. Thank you, Moonboats. Anybody use oak leaves? Papa Shrimp. Oak leaves are probably the best. There are others, catalpa certainly, catalpa. But oak leaves are wonderful. And any of the yolks will do. I've got a bag. I don't know if I can find it. Yeah, right here. Got a bag of them. These are pin oaks, or live oaks, rather. Live oak leaves. Collected them in the wild, obviously, and use them in all of my new systems. I've got some set up outside in vats, so I bring that in periodically. Dried magnolia leaves, yes, they are perfect. They're a very thick, hard leaf, so they take a bit longer to break down. If you can find them in a water environment where they've fallen into a pond, any kind of water, try to collect those because you'll have with them the particular forms of bacteria and fungus that break them down best. You need the chewers and the chompers and the guys that get in there and really break it down. It's important to try to get those. You're not going to have them to a high level in your tank. So if you can bring them in, that's going to help increase your biodiversity in the tank. It'll make the tank more stable and healthier, and it'll provide more nutrition for the microfauna, which provides nutrition for the small fish. So by doing this, you're creating a food web. You're creating an environment in which your little fish will be able to forage and find natural food. We had a couple of guys try to do a larger tank as a predator tank with providing a food web for the feeder animals, the feeder fish. It worked fairly well. You need a really big tank to be able to do that, 500 gallons or so, if you're going to put, larger predators in there. But you can do it on a much smaller level. If you're not looking to get your little fish eaten, then they will produce and thrive in that kind of environment. Christina Whitaker, I tried cloning maple trees. Didn't work, but put the twigs and leaves in my tank. Don't know what she means by that, by cloning maple trees. Put the twigs and leaves in the tank, fish love it. I guess she means what she said. She tried cloning it, didn't work, but was able to use the leaves and twigs. Absolutely. Yeah, and don't forget about the twigs. picking up well-dried twigs out of a body of water or right off the ground, but you want twigs that have been laying there for months. They are very dramatic in a tank. A group of them, a little pile of them, creates a wonderful environment for little tiny fish to be able to get that burrow down in there and feed. It's really a dramatic effect in a fish tank. A little pile of twigs or tiny branches. Thank you, Christina, for that. That's a really good tip and something that the natural tank enthusiast, if they haven't discovered, will now, and find a real joy in their tank, because it provides a level of a natural feel that cannot be duplicated in many other ways. One of the things that the collectors in the Amazon have discovered is that where there is a bend in a river or creek, and leaves and twigs pile up and create great masses, that's the area where they'll find more fish spawning than anywhere else. And the reason's very simple. It's creating a huge biomass load of microfauna, which is the initial food for baby fish. So the parents go into that, make their nest, the babies hatch, they begin swimming, and they immediately are able to find all of the food that they need to be able to grow quickly. So it's an absolutely perfect environment for small spawning fish, particularly little cichlids like the apistogrammas. Just love these big leaf beds. Okay, I think I've gotten all the way back. I have a 30-gallon Randy Coke that I never clean, been empty for 6 months, still clear, doesn't smell. So are you saying it's fine, just put fish in it? Absolutely. You can put fish in. If the tank that crashes and you do as I suggested to get it to clear up, you can put fish back in at day 4 or 5. You put them in earlier, I wouldn't do it because you take a bit of a risk. You want to make sure the oxygen level is high enough to be able to sustain them, because that's what happens. When a tank crashes, it burns off excess oxygen, and usually all the fish will die because they can't breathe. If you find them hanging at the top gulping, then you know you got a problem. Best way to deal with that is get them out if you can. If you can't, drop the water level and refill it with oxygenated water. Stick an air stone in there, or 2 or 3 or 4. I mean, load it up with bubbles, because that gets the water moving. As the water contacts the surface, it releases CO2 and dissolves oxygen. So the more water movement you have, the quicker that's going to happen, and the quicker the oxygen deprived water will regain its balance. Wednesdays are open, Rocco's saying. Well, good. We'll hang on here a little bit then. Let's see. Rohan, my fish are dropping like flies in my hygrophila tank, but my pH temperature is stable. Do a water change. Dead fish not being eaten by the other fish. It is probably just what we're talking about. Yeah, do a water change. Do about a 50% water change. And if you can stick an air stone in there, do that too. Generally, fish dropping like flies means a drop in dissolved oxygen. That's almost always the case. That can be brought on by a lot of different things. If the hygrophila, which tends to have a lot of waste material, is loaded up on the bottom and you don't have a lot of water movement, then that can be creating an anaerobic environment, an environment in which there's not adequate oxygen. Let me talk about anaerobics for a minute. This is an enormously confusing topic, made more confusing by people who really don't understand it. The word anaerobic is a word that is used in two different ways by two different sciences. It's used by earth scientists, geologists, and it's used by water scientists, aquatic scientists. And it's used by these two disciplines in two completely different ways, describing two completely different things. Let me explain. In geology, an environment that is said to be anaerobic contains, first of all, no air, at least breathable air, such as we have on the earth, and no water. Water is a compound containing oxygen. Anaerobic, to a geologist, means there is no presence of oxygen in any form. So it's not locked into rocks. It's not there is no water. There is no oxygenated air. There is no oxygen in any form, or virtually any form, meaning deep space, meaning the moon, meaning deep in the earth, meaning places where oxygen literally cannot be found. Now, that's a relative term, but the relative nature of it is such that it will be infinitesimal to the point of being undetectable. That is what a geologist means by anaerobic. No water, no air of any kind at all. Any kind containing oxygen. Water contains oxygen, so that doesn't count. Any other compound containing oxygen is not in what a geologist calls an anaerobic environment. No oxygen in any form at all. The inside of igneous rock is anaerobic. When you break it open, it's no longer, at least on the surface, anaerobic because air is touching it. You got the picture. That's anaerobic. Think the moon, anaerobic environment. Except where there's ice, you see. Where there's ice, generally, that ice is H2O. Now, not all ice is H2O. There's some ices on other planets that are not water. They're other compounds. And can be any number of other compounds. But we're talking about oxygen. In a biological environment, such as a biologist is used to working in, when they talk about anaerobic, they're talking about an environment in which there is no free oxygen, no single-celled oxygen in that environment as a single atom, as a single non-compound. In other words, an environment in which there's no dissolved oxygen is said to be like what we've been describing, water that has gone foul, in which the oxygen has been used up and essentially driven out, actually used up, created, made into compounds that no longer allow the oxygen to be a free agent. In biology, that's called an anaerobic environment. For the geologist, it's not anaerobic at all. It contains water, which water contains oxygen. So it's not anaerobic. You get the idea. Okay. So when we use words like anoxic and distinguish them from anaerobic, it's a distinction without a difference. There's no difference in a biological environment between anoxic and anaerobic. They're the same thing. Simple? You get the idea? Leave it there for now. Let me jump down here. I've done a lot of this. I'll tell you what, let me go to the bottom. We'll work our way back up. Any place oxidation can take place unless a non-water ice. That's, yeah, basically right, Terry. That's the idea. Any environment in which oxidation cannot occur can be said to be anaerobic. Chris Robertson, some of both. I'm using, let me back up a little. Christina. Chris Robertson, I have mulberry leaves I collected at home. The fish love it. Better hunt and hide in the litter. Yeah, mulberry leaves seem to be remarkably effective. Probably all fruit tree leaves are. Fruit trees and nut trees are all hardwoods. So their leaves are going to be particularly beneficial. Don't really understand what the difference is. Not enough of a biologist to know. But I do know that hardwoods, nut trees, fruit trees are all hardwood trees and produce leaves that seem to be just more dynamic in the water than softwood leaves. Rohan, increase the surface flow agitation, barely any leaf litter. I'll post it on the surfer. That's going to solve the problem, probably. Randy, you ever had rainbow shiners? And are they easy to care for? Rainbow shiners. I can't keep them down here. I've had shiners. Florida's too warm for them. They need a colder water. They're magnificent, but Maple Street's got them. He's kept them and he's done well with them. His fish room is around 60 degrees, which is about where you need to be able to keep these things. And he may still be here. Jump on his live stream. He's on every week. Anybody who's doing natives needs to plug into Maple Street. It's just really remarkable channel. Chris is saying hi, Rocco, and anyone else that said hi. Had to drop my son off at school. Welcome back, Chris. Rowan saying I've read oxygen is more at the bottom too. Guess that's not true. Right. That's not true. Oxygen, it depends on water movement. Oxygen, trying to think. Oxygen does not navigate. It does not move through the water. It moves with the water. So as the water moves, oxygen moves with it, which is why you have to have circulation in order to be able to keep the CO2 off the bottom, get it coming up in contact with the surface where it can jump off the train, and oxygen can jump on. But it's the water circulating. That's the key. It's not whether one thing or another rises or doesn't. It's that the water has to circulate. Where it doesn't, like in a pond, if there is absolutely no circulation, that means no spring down there that's feeding the pond, no runoff where water is coming in and going out and refreshing it. If it's absolutely dead still, there will be a certain amount of movement from the life that's in it, the microfauna and the fish and plants and so forth. They will create a certain amount of water movement, as will thermoclines, because warmer water rises. So as water at the cold, as in the cold temperature, for example, the colder water is going to fall. The warmer water, which is at the bottom, Earth's temperature, mid 60s to 68 or so, is going to rise. It's going to cause a certain amount of water movement. There's natural water movement that occurs even at a big pond, but it can happen that there is not adequate water movement. There is a substantial amount of life, not including plants, because plants will create water movement. They take in CO2, they release oxygen. In the process, they're helping to move the water as well. But if you have a plain flat bottom, a mud bottom, no plants growing in it, perhaps 6, 8, 10 feet deep, the bottom layer will be anaerobic. Fish won't be able to survive in it. It'll be essentially a dead zone. I'll tell you where this occurs most visibly, where it presents most obviously, is in the sea, in the salt water, in ocean water, where currents are moving, particularly in shallow water. By shallow, I mean less than 30 feet deep, where water currents are moving, where pockets are created. Maybe they're going around an obstruction and creating a pocket. And so in that pocket, there's no water movement at all. And that may persist for an extended period of time. In that location, in that spot where there's no water movement, a dead zone is created. And nothing goes in there and comes back out. It is literally a dead zone. Which leads to problems like red tide. Red tide creates dead zones. It burns up so much oxygen that the fish and other living creatures in there simply can't survive. They suffocate. So you can have it occurring naturally. The solution is always moving water. So we can't get out in the ocean and churn the water out. Actually, we probably can. And that probably is ultimately the solution to red tide, is to simply stir it up. You need a giant soup spoon, something to move millions of gallons of water, particularly where red tide exists, because it occurs as an environment. If you can get in there and swirl that out, move it out, you'll bring all that CO2 to the surface where it'll dissipate, you'll save the environment. It's doable. It's a certain bacteria, actually an algae that burns up is it algae or bacteria? It must be bacteria that burns up substantial amounts of oxygen, flows in such a big mass that it creates a dead zone. You deal with that by stirring it up really hard and really aggressively in very substantial volumes, which dissipates it and breaks it down, and it no longer is a problem. I don't know that's being done anywhere. We certainly have the technology to do it. It needs to be done. Stupid it's not being done. Going back, Rocco's running the kids on a break, looking at me with breakfast in their eyes. Yeah. Oh, making new maple trees from cuttings. Fleming. Thank you, Gordon. Right. Rohan, Father Fish once told the story. Oh, his grandmother used a radiator to keep the tank warm in the winter. That's right. She had her tank sitting on a radiator in front of a window. And so it got sunlight and it got reflected heat from the radiator. I remember that tank. Did you always have electricity, or was it not as common early on in life? I always had electricity from the 40s. But my grandmother didn't. From going back to the teens and the first decade in the century. And she would create tanks that sat in a window that had no filtration, no aeration, no heat, nothing. And she mostly kept guppies. She loved guppies. Yeah, and they lived in, she never had bare bottom tanks. I think she did finally eventually start doing a dirted substrate, but I remember her using gravel and having to go over every time I visit her and clean the tank. Until one day we put sand in it, and that changed everything. Came in late, 29-gallon substrate. How much leaves to add? Handful or cover bottom. Start slow and easy. Just go easy with it. You don't want to put so much in that it's going to dramatically impact the environment, because it could create the kind of thing we're talking about, could create O2 problems. If you start with a smaller biomass, you can build it up. Just go slow and go easy with it. Deb Moy. Hello, Deb Moy. Deb Moy Samantha. Jason Lacey. How to cure white poop problem. We got that. Good. Rocco, Miss Hippie. Hey, Miss Hippie, Mississippi Hippie. Nice to see you. And I think we got back Nicole Rowe. Hi, Nicole. Nicole's another one of our master aquarists who are in the Discord channel and is of inestimable value to us. She's been a real joy to have in there, working with people who have various kinds of problems with their fish tanks. She's always full of ideas and information, has a great perspective on things. Has been doing deep sand bed deep substrate as long as I have. So a pretty remarkable lady. Thank you, Nicole. All right, we got all the way back, I think. Rohan, talking about Roman is saying wind will also help the motor in still water tubs. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm amazed at how waves coming across the top of the water move the water on the bottom, even if it's like 30, 40 feet deep. That's a whole body of water moving. Well, let's see. We're a 10:15, and I have to take a break. And we could just end it here because it's late enough. Chris is saying red tide requires phosphates in the water too, as I recall, which is why soaps are all phosphate free for the laundry detergent. Right. What's surfactants? surfactants is what creates uh, oxygen-deprived environments. Tell you what, let me take a break. I'll be back in 1 minute. I don't know if I got anything I can play for you. Let's look at driftwood shrimp. Back in a minute. Wednesday, middle of the week, hump day. Oh, all right, I'm back. Well, that's funny. I put his picture up and didn't put it up. Oh well, sorry about that, guys. Let me get back to where we were. Whoosh. Achilles Tapa. Hello, hello. Nice to see you, Achilles Tapa. Oh, Chris Robertson, Red Tie. We did that. That was pretty interesting. No comments since then. That's no comments in the last 5 minutes. Is everybody going? We got 33 people here. But I'm seeing no comments. In the last 5 or 6 minutes, 7 minutes now. Odd. Oh, Crowntail saying I enjoyed watching you, thanks. Well, thank you. Yeah, they're coming along. I've gotten a lot of nice guppies up here. Not much in this tank yet. There are some little chocolate cichlids, which I'm excited about. I mean, they're not chocolate cichlids. What are they? They are chocolate cichlids and Anaastronemus, which is a gourami that gets 2 foot long. This one's a gold, so I'm kind of excited about that. They're real pretty. The guppies are nice. I don't have any females. I got them at the auction, the Tampa auction, this past weekend. Got about 20 of them in there. Really nice. But no females, so I got to get females. Oh, and I ordered fish and forgot to order females. Oh, well. I think they'll be here today, too. Oh, dear. All right. ADHD. I siphoned more stuff off the bottom of the brine shrimp tank. Gonna add some sand from the GSL. I have it in a bucket in the trunk. Yeah, absolutely. That'll help. If you want to grow them, just don't try to create a huge load of them. You'll grow them in a much smaller portion. And if you can keep them in sunlight where they'll get some algae, particularly single-celled algae. That's basically what they're eating in the wild. You can feed yeast. You can feed tiny amounts of yeast. They'll be able to eat that, and that'll be beneficial. What fish are good sand cleaners? That's a really good question. What fish are good sand cleaners? Well, certainly Corydoras. Corys are in there all the time. And loaches, any kind of loach. Catfish, not so much. Anything that sort of burrows down. Geophagus, earth eaters, all of the earth eaters. The best one is Malaysian trumpet snails. Malaysian trumpet snails will act like earthworms. They'll keep that top half inch or so well percolated. What else? Plants. Plants do a good job of cleaning the tank. There are some worms, aquatic worms, that live in that sand bed. Lots and lots of microfauna. Microfauna are in there stirring things up and feeding all the time. So, and a good way to bring that in is with leaf mold. That'll bring in lots of microfauna. So, a lot of things. A lot of things. Emily is here. Hello, Emily. Didn't see Emily. Yeah, Crontail's saying my Corys do a good job. They absolutely do. Armored cats are good sand cleaners. Okay, RJ is standing up for armored cats. Rohan geophagus and trumpet snails, you bet. How diverse are bristlenose plecos? I have so many different things coming from two parents, different colors, sizes. I'll tell you what, I was at the Tampa auction, I just mentioned it, this past weekend. I got a couple of bags of crown tails, but there were some pretty cool ones. And I've got somebody who's got some for me that are checkerboard pattern with a lot of red in them. There is a red, enormous variety. And it's all morphs. It's all genetic morphs, genetic variations. It's the same species, just throwing a wide range of morphs, of variation in color, in pattern, in shape to a certain extent. There's squat ones, long fin ones. Yeah, a lot of variety. That's because they're being bred in such enormous quantities, and the oddballs are being pulled out, grown up, and spawned back into the population. So we're getting more and more. It's like puppies. Same thing with puppies. It's a matter of selecting characteristics that are unique and bringing them back into the population. That's what selective breeding is. One will have a crown pattern, another white spots. Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it? Really remarkable. Good job, by the way, being able to breed them in that kind of quantity. That's exciting stuff. Plants that do well in hard water. Nearly all plants do well in hard water. The ones that don't are like the Ponochetans, a lot of the mosses, things like Cuba, but baby tears, most all of the stem plants, certainly the Val Sage and swords, they all do very well in hard water. In fact, a lot of them are brackish water plants in the wild, in nature. It's a low-level brackish, but it's brackish nevertheless. They also, many of them will do well in salt water too. So you just have to try different things. Your water conditions may be unique. I know you have very hard water out there in Iowa. But you need to try a variety of plants and see which ones do best, and then just work with that family of plants. That's always the best way to go. Do what you can do well and do it better. Good rule. Do what you do well and do it better. Learn to do more with it. Learn to expand your horizons with the things with which you are successful. And you'll develop a broad range of success oriented activity. It'll just make you so much happier than trying over and over and over again and failing to grow buse. I mean, really. If you can't grow buse, there's so many other really magnificent plants you can grow. Why not do something that you can do well with and do more with that? Expand it. Find ways of changing its morphology. Find ways of growing it in new kinds of environments. Do what you do best and do it better. There's a great rule. If we all did that, we'd all be so much happier. Let's see. Rohan saying he used a different net for most tanks. RJ saying trumpet snails are a plague. Hard to kill them, would eat every egg in my aquarium. Worse yet, they'll spread from aquarium to aquarium via a net. Yeah, it's probably true. They probably are egg eaters. I've never had the problem. Now, wait a minute. Maybe I have. I was trying to breed buffalo heads in this tank, and I know they were spawning, and I never got a hatching. And this tank is loaded with trumpet snails. Just saying. I will focus on that. And thank you very much for that, RJ. We're going to pay attention to that. Do shrimps clean sand? Yes, absolutely they do. They don't go down particularly deep, however. They're not like a digger in any way. But they're constantly looking for food on the substrate and on plants. So they are definitely detritus eaters. So yeah, shrimp are a good tank cleaner, absolutely. Mom was regular, dad was dwarf. Christina Whitaker. Ah, very good. Talking about her bristles. Crowdtail says, I like that new rule. Yeah, that just came out of the ether, didn't it? That's pretty good. I like it too. Going to try to remember it. Do what you do well and do it better. Oh, ADHD wants to know if RJ is talking about assassin snails. I don't know. As I've said, I've never noticed the problem. But then I've never had trumpet snails in a tank where I've been hatching out eggs, to my knowledge. About the only ones that would have been affected are rams. And I haven't had the problem in years, but it's possible there were no trumpet snails in there. I did have a problem here, never doped it out. So I'm going to work on that. We're going to determine whether that, in fact, I have moved now all of them over, except for one, over to this other tank in which there are no trumpet snails. So we'll see if they spawn in here. Try to get this guy to go in a pot. I can get him to go in a pot. I can catch him. He doesn't want to go in the pot. Look at him. Look at that. Coming up for food. Get in the pot, dude. Oh, well. Oh. Right, Chris. Father Fish said Iowa, and I'm in Iowa. Oh, that's right. ADHD's in Utah. I'm sorry. Great Salt Lake, Utah. Right. I said Iowa, didn't I? That was dumb. Oh. Brain's really not working well today on some levels. RJ was blindsided by those innocent-looking trumpet snails. Wasn't talking about assassins. I'm sure he knows the difference. And I dare say you're right. Again, I've never had the problem, but boy, it makes perfect sense because they are a cleanup crew par excellence. I mean, they'll clean the algae off the tank at night. And it would make sense that they would clean up any organic material they can find. Eggs would, a lot of snails do eat eggs. Mystery snails will eat eggs. Ramsword snails will eat eggs. Generally speaking, probably old snails eat eggs unless they are gelatinous, and for whatever peculiar reason, they don't eat the gelatinous mass. It may have some toxicity or just a bad taste. I don't know. I've never tried to eat it myself. Well, there's an interesting tidbit now, isn't there? Trumpet snails eating eggs. Who'd have thought? Need to write a paper on that, RJ. They sneak out at night so you don't see them hunting the eggs. That's right, they do. They do. They sneak out and they come right up out of the sand in the dark and crawl up the invasion of the trumpet snails, crawling up the side of the glass by the millions, covering the glass. Rum, 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 as they crawl to the top. You know what they're doing? They're eating bacteria, algae, whatever there is on the glass. And they're small enough that they need to avoid predation. So they do it at night when there are no loaches around to gobble them up. Drifting driftwood with a question mark. What's the question, drifting? Rohan made a comment about nets. He has a lot of different nets and uses nets discriminately, has nets designated to certain things. It's always a good idea. RJ was just mentioning how things can flip from one tank to another through the net. I have never done it. I tried at various points and I just kind of lost control of it. So I've never really had designated tanks, unless it was something really unique that I absolutely wanted to protect. And I have done that. But generally, for most of my aquariums, where I'm not really focusing on a specific issue, I use the nets indiscriminately. And I'm sure I have problems doing that. But rarely do I think those problems have been exacerbated into disasters. Other things in my life, but probably not nets. Randy is going to check out Maple Street by all means. Well, yeah, but even then, Chris, I don't know why they would not eat their own. unless the gelatinous substance were somehow indigestible or something. What can be eating my new sword leaves overnight and then we have a hang on? ADHD saying bristle nose. Yeah, that can do it. I've had it happen. I've had bristle nose chew up um, Amazon leaf, Amazon sword leaves. Chew them up. Christina's saying, that's why we started out on YouTube. If I could make a living fishing, I'd be happy. You can make a living fishing, but it's an eked out living generally. You know, the few people who hit it and nail it are few and far between. It's a matter of how much risk you're willing to take and how much work you're willing to do. You know, the people who are successful with fish go for all intents and purposes have gone overboard. They've created a substantially large operation where they're able to produce enormous volumes of product and then find effective ways to market it. It's like any other business. It takes some skill at learning how to develop a product, how to create that product, how to multiply the product, how to get the product to market, and how to deliver it, and then how to sell it once it's at market. So there's a lot to it, and you have to kind of break it down into pieces and go after it sort of piece by piece until you put the whole picture together. Most people don't try to do that. They'll get a fish that'll be spawning like angels. They'll wind up with 25 tanks of angels, all different sizes. They'll have a couple of thousand angels and then wonder what they're going to do with them. They're counting dollar signs all the while. Saying, whoa, I've got, $5 a piece. Whoa, I got $10,000 here. Whoa, I'm a rich man. I can do this. But what they haven't considered is taking the fish out of the tank, putting them in something that they can deliver them in, having a place to deliver them to, having a means of delivery, being able to deliver them alive, and then having that person who is receiving them be willing to actually pay for them, and so forth and so on. I mean, it's a much more complex arrangement than simply producing a lot of fish. And you have to think through and plan through all of those stages if you really want to make an income on it. Well, you can always do a little bit, though. It's easy to do a little bit. It's easy to do enough to get a taste of it. And if it's a supplemental income, that can be an absolute joy. And it's not going to be so burdensome that it will take you away from the rest of your life. Because that's the problem with a business. A business, if it's done well and effectively for the first 20 years or so, takes you away from your life. It defines your life. Chris says Siamese algae eater. Are you talking about them eating sword plant leaves? I might debate you on that one. Autosynclus is good. They don't chew on anything. Yeah, Deborah is saying Coley loaches keep trumpet snails in check. Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. Any of the loaches will. PN plecos, Siamese algae eaters, yo-yo loaches. Drift and driftwood. Bristlenose pleco, Siamese algae eater, or yo-yo loaches? What are your thoughts? I don't know. I like them all. Siamese algae eaters. I like them all. Not the yo-yo, but the other two. I was going to order them. I did, I think. I think I ordered a bunch of loaches, or maybe I canceled them. I don't remember. Uh, yeah, I like the loaches. I've never spawned them. I do like them. They're pretty hardy. Um, they hold up well. They're colorful and interesting. I like loaches. There are loaches. There are loaches everywhere. The weather loach is one that is it's an invasive species, but it's easily found in wild water in Florida. Bristlenose pleco eating swords. Yeah, that's right. Has to be one of the three. Drifton is saying that's eating plants. Oh, that was the question. Got it. Yeah, bristlenose for sure. Got it. Right. Sorry, I didn't follow through on that Drifton. Yeah, bristlenose definitely. RJ screwed up once, rushing fish to auction. Used the same net for 4 aquariums. A few days later, I had velvet in all 4 aquariums. Particularly with here's the issue. RJ did this in tanks that were loaded with fish. And so there was every opportunity for a pathogen to get in there and just run rampant. Didn't have nearly enough competition, probably. They probably were pretty sterile tanks, very clean tanks, trying to keep his population as healthy as possible. So doing lots of water changes. And with a large amount of fish, you got to do that anyway. So a pathogen gets in there, it has no competition, and it runs rampant. And absolutely that can happen. So here's a rule for you. If you are raising fish, trying to get a population going, such as RJ is describing, it's critical to keep that tank isolated so that you're not taking the risk of bringing pathogens into that. You've got you've got a high risk environment, an environment that has a very high biomass. You've got to be careful about feeding. Got to be careful about water quality, about aeration, about every aspect of that tank. So here's a case where RJ, who obviously has mastered a number of the steps in this process, made a simple error. Somehow got a pathogen out of a tank and inadvertently, as he's moving fish around, moves that pathogen tank to tank. And because those tanks are relatively sterile with relatively low levels of biological diversity, that pathogen found an environment in which it could explode. Nothing to control it, nothing to contain it. That's why in my tanks I can get away with mixing the nets because I have a very high level of biodiversity. So I introduce something new into that tank and it struggles to survive. It's got to balance itself out, find a niche in that biological environment where it can survive and then where it can thrive. So there are a lot more controls in a biodiverse environment. There are virtually none in a relatively sterile environment. The very kind of environment that you want to have when you're raising a very large number of fish. You want a very clean environment. You don't want a high biodiverse environment, unless, of course, you're raising them in ponds, in outdoor ponds, large ponds, where you can raise tens of thousands of small fish in a dirt pond that's a quarter of an acre. You've got tremendous volumes of water, of soil, of nutrients, and so forth. An extremely high level of biodiversity, which will protect the population of fish. Now, even at that, you get things in there, like, for example, parasites, certain kinds of parasites can get in there. More commonly, snakes. A libello. This is Michael Libello. Michael.
Hey, buddy, you still at home?
Yeah, I'm still running live. I'm in.
Oh, sorry. Let me let you
That's
know.
okay.
Call me when you're done.
Okay, we'll do.
I've been watching off and on. Excellent.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Yes, sir.
Take care. Michael is a member of the Tampa Bay Aquarium Society, as well as all of the other local clubs. In fact, he's going to be at Pasco County this coming weekend. Lucas will be there doing a presentation. I hope to make it. Right now, I don't know how I can, but I'm going to certainly try to be there. Love to be able to see Lucas. Anyway, Michael's he's the one who put on the auction in Tampa Bay this weekend, and it was magnificent. Just absolutely wonderful program. RJ screwed up once. Yeah, he's talking about this. Velvet is evil. Yes, it is. Yeah, Ryan suggesting algae wafers as an alternative food for the pleco. I have found that if I provide adequate alternatives, lettuce leaves, for example, they'll choose that rather than the plant leaf. So yeah, that certainly works. Worse for those of us with old eyes. You got that right, RJ. You got that right. I'll tell you what I can't see. And it's irritating. I can't see ick in its early stages. That's dreadful. I mean, that's absolutely dreadful. Now, I haven't had the problem here because I haven't had 500 tanks to look at. So, I can keep control of this better because I'm looking at these guys all day long, every day. So I see little nuances. But with a huge number of tanks, man, there were a number of times I missed it, and all of a sudden the tank is crashing, and what the hell? Get over and look. Yep, ick. Been there for days. Drifton, thank you for thoughts and experience concerning my problem. The bristle nose will come out. Yeah, that's what I wound up doing. I just didn't put them in anymore with my big swords. Crown Tail Half Moon. Kenny, hey. Oh, yeah, looking forward to it, Kenny. Should be a great weekend. John Heaton. Hello, John. Crown Tail Half Moon and Crown Tail Aquatics. We got them both in here. All right. Sammy 3D. Hello. Red Eye Aquatics. Hey, Red Eye. We got a whole new gang coming in here now. Lord, we may continue the party. Have I ever bred a mono shrimp? No, you have to breed them in salt water. They won't hatch in fresh water. And I've never kept them in hard water tanks, not in enough quantity to be able to spawn them. Mostly, I kept my shrimp in relatively saltwater tanks, even the Amanos. And I did that simply to separate them out and keep them available. But what you would have to do, you could probably do it with your hard water. You probably could get them. You certainly can get them to spawn. The trick is to get them to hatch, and it's just going to require a higher density of water to cause those uh, babies to be able to break through the shell. Got to bag a quick crate play sand in storage. Probably not, without washing it extensively. Now, there is a way around that. The very dusty sand, and play sand is kind of the prime example of dusty sand. If you set the tank up and put the sand in before you put any water in, and then cover it completely, cover it with a plastic bag, something, so that when you put the water in, the water's not stirring it up at all. Not at all. Not even a little tiny bit. Then put a sponge filter in it, poke some plants an inch or so down into it, being careful not to, dig it up and put the plant in it, throw it back. Don't do that. Just use a pair of tweezers and push the plant down in there, so you're disturbing very little. If you'll do that, get the sponge filter going. You should be able to defeat it. I've done that, and I've done it successfully. The critical thing is you don't want to stir that sand bed up, because what will happen over a relatively short period of time is all of that dust, that particulate matter, is going to precipitate down. And it's going to leave that top layer relatively free of dust. So by doing it that way, you can overcome it. You can still use the play sand, but you've got to do it in a way that doesn't allow the dust to get into the water column as you're setting up the tank. Try that. Seed shrimp, tiny spherical creatures, like Daphne. Sand is likely dirty. Yeah, that's the alternative, Brian, is to rinse it and rinse it and rinse it and rinse it and rinse it. You can do that too. Found copepods in my Daphne magna. Is that bad? No. No, not bad. I think copepods and Daphne can get along together. I don't think the Daphne will eat the copepods or the copepods eat the Daphne. Somebody check me out on that, but I believe that's okay. So much love for crown tails today. You bet. You bet. I've got a couple here. Let me see. See if I can find one that I can show you. I've got a bunch of blacks. If I can find them. There's guppies in with my mollies. The water's starting to get cold. But the mollies will love, and the guppies will be all right with, but the bettas might not. I'm not seeing him in there. I have more. I have more. Here's the one. That's not a crown tail, that's a half moon. The crown tail's right here. You know what? I'm glad I went looking for these. This water's getting cold, and they're not going to like it. Need to get them out of here. Let's see. Where are you guys? Oh, here's one. Let's see if we can do this. I'm probably going to lose the signal every time I touch this wire. Oh, well. All right, I'm back. I would love to be able to move this camera and show you I've got a gorgeous crown tail here. I don't know if I can do it without losing the signal. We'll try. I see him. Come on over here, fish. He's hiding from us. I don't know if you can see him. I just barely see him. See if we can get him to come over. Come over here. He don't want to come. He's hiding. Oh well. I've got more. I've got a 4 or 5. I got some black crown tails last week, and they're all doing pretty well. One of them got beat up. I put him in where I shouldn't have put him, and he got beat up pretty bad. He's coming back. I'll show him to you. He's right there. His fins are coming back, but boy, he got some kind of chewed up. So I think he'll be all right. There's that guy. He's not coming out. Oh well. There's another one down here, not coming out. They're all hiding this morning. All right, listen, it's 11 o'clock. We've been here 2 hours. Let me wrap it up. I got to get a bunch of fish in the mail today. I went out yesterday and collected. By the way, anybody looking for Illicoma evergladi, I've got about 50 of them. Right now, I've got about 20 sold. So if you want evergladi, they're listed on Get Gills. In my store, they're also listed at Father Fish Aquarium. You can find them there. Happy to ship them out to you. I will be shipping this week, so if you want to get them, I'm going to ship today, tomorrow, and Friday. Love you all. Thank you so much for being here and sharing. This was a lot of fun. I really need to do some longer streams. I just have such a lot of fun with it. Tried feeding food with vitamin B for fin repair. No, I have not. I will do that. I will do that. Wild bet is Joshua. Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. Joshua's doing some pretty exciting stuff. He's over on Discord with us and breeding a number of really interesting fish, including wild bettas and some double or triple red apistos. Pretty good stuff. Randy likes the red bettas. Me too. I got a red betta here somewhere. I don't know where it is. I don't see it. I think it's in my 40 lawn. Oh no, I got it in a bowl. Here, I'll bring one of them over. This is a little female hiding behind the plant. All of my bettas are hiding today. Look at this. It's out here looking at me, but I can't show it. There we go. There she is. Pretty little girl. That's a crown tail, I think. No, it's not. It's a half moon. It's a half moon, right? I don't see any crown tail in that. Anyway. All right. God bless you all. Come on over to Discord. We can chat over there. We're there 24/7. And I will be back Friday evening, 8:30, with Fishy Business. That'll be a lot of fun. See you all then. God bless.